Imer, Imer. I'm just, okay. Okay, we are starting now with our last panel debate. So this panel is about beyond Marrakesh. What are the next steps for civil society movement and action? Our moderator for this session is William Goyce from Migrant Forum in Asia. So, William, we will hand this to you.
All right. So we are in the last stretch, and it would be good for us to kind of reflect on where we go beyond Marrakesh. Marrakesh and beyond, that is what we are looking at in this session. And to begin with, to recognize that we as civil society in the GFMD have come a long way. For those of us who were involved in the very first GFMD, there was a whole question of whether civil society should even be part of the process in 2007. Over the last 14 years, 12 years, we have reached that space where civil society is now even in the government days, on the panels. And I think that is something both to recognize the struggle that went through in coming to this space, the agendas that were carried, the agendas that were not carried. But the fact is that it brought about a process where we could think of how stakeholders together can move forward. The GCM is all about this as well. The all-of-society approach that the GCM speaks about as a principle is something that we have to realize. In the last 2-3 days, we've been hearing how we as civil society should move forward, and there have been many and several conversations. In the last panel, many of the organizations, the sectoral groupings, regional groupings, looked at some of their plans going forward. On this panel, in this session, we have 4 organizations, individuals that have been very involved in moving this agenda, in bringing us to this day. And so I'd like to begin this kind of dialogue, discussion, debate, reflection with the 4 of you. We have Ignacio, Monami, Kakeli, and Hannah, who represent different sectors, different organizations, and have been at the heart of moving things forward as well. Let me then begin with Monami, first you, since your name is first on the lineup. If, in the last 2-3 days that we've been here, what are some of your own reflections, and what are some of the things you have heard in the different processes going forward? There's been talks about work plans, there's been talk about long-term strategy, there's been talk about implementation on the ground, there's been talk about national, regional, international alignment of programs, there's been talk about monitoring, review. There's been so much of this. How does this come together, and what are some of the plans that you all have been discussing in terms of how this could move forward?
Thank you, William. And I know everyone is quite tired, but we're here with some great visionary new ideas and reflections coming from all of you and these really amazing conversations in the last few days. I think one thing that struck me from the conversations in the few days amongst ourselves, and then when we were with governments as well, is that I think that in the last many years that many of our organizations, us as individuals or new individuals have come to this space, that it's a constant process and an evolving process where we are learning and getting better at being activists, at being in solidarity, at working across our different issues, our different interests, our different contexts. And I really felt in the last couple of days that we should be proud. We should be proud of the successes we've had in working more effectively together to defend the human rights of migrants. I feel a change, and from my own perspective, I think that the last 2 years of the Global Compact process, regardless of what we think of it, the pros and cons, it gave us the practice. It gave us practice to get together and work even harder across different issues, to bridge differences, to build alignments, to struggle together. But it also gave us this understanding that there's been a lot of pressure, expectation about Marrakesh. It's the longest, I think, week that we've been together in all of these spaces, but also the understanding, the realization that this is a moment in time. This is a moment in time. There'll be another moment in time, perhaps 6 months from now or 8 months from now, where things are perhaps in a different place for migrants. Perhaps we're coming together again. But that we have small struggles within these moments that teach us lessons about how we can be better activists and advocates. But that we're here for the long haul. And that long haul is what's going to change the lives of people. It's not this one moment or the next, but what we can take from that to actually draw some concrete work ahead. I can say a little bit more about the specifics, or if you want to come back later. Sure. Yep. So I think a couple of things I was hearing from the different spaces is one, starting from the past. And this has been a process that was going on in the Green Room for 2 days, and even beyond that. And in the work of the organization of the civil society days, of other global processes, is thinking about the lessons we've learned in the past years of working together, what we can draw from that, and really thinking of changes and improving what we do well moving forward. This has been a big process that I know many of us will continue to work with Hermione and others who are crafting and thinking about the vision of what civil society, the power we can achieve or have moving forward. The second is the really central need to respect and trust and have faith in plurality. That we are civil society and we always balance between having a united front, and that united front can be a united front of action together, but it could be based on a plurality of perspectives, a plurality of positions, a plurality of tactics. And we saw this happen this year. There are different perspectives of the compact, and that's okay. The compact is not going to change the life of a migrant tomorrow, or in 6 months, or in a year from now. It is what we use it for. It is a tool like other policies or compacts. It's a tool that we can use to advance the issues that we care about and we're fighting for in any case, and perhaps new ones. But that there will be different thinking about this. This coming weekend, we'll be having the People's Global Action for Migration, Development, and Human Rights. We expect to have about the PGA has always been a parallel space, a very open debate, conversation, dialogue, and collective action across the world. And there's different perspectives, and those perspectives need to be held as well. In terms of Morocco, this may have been mentioned by our Moroccan colleagues here, but the conditions on the ground for migrants have been very, very difficult. The challenges for those in government who may have followed the compact process and the reality of what's happening on the ground may be very difficult. The challenges for the activists, for the migrants, are very difficult. It's a reality that we should hold and understand that the intention, perhaps, of our progressive friends and allies and governments around the compact and the realities in different places are different things. And how can we show solidarity and support to those organizations, to the migrants in the north who are being pushed back or detained? How do we support their campaigns as well as project the need to use the compact to push forward human rights as much as we can?
But thanks, Monami, and I'll already hint to you, Ignacio, on some of the things that she said when I come to you to answer some of that, is that she used words like power, building power, and this whole GFMD has been about action. So you might want to think of, when you're going to speak, as how you see us moving forward in terms of building power and in terms of action. But before I come to you then, Kikeli, one of the big achievements of this whole GFMD process is that for the first time we have a diaspora forum. And I remember in the first years of the GFMD, there was this, the recognition of diaspora, but not enough of it in the migration and development discourse. And we've come through this process where there's more discussion around this, and I see in the government forums as well now. There's a lot of recognition of the role that diaspora play in development. How do you see then the diaspora and moving beyond Marrakesh and taking things forward in terms of both advancing the GCM as well as advancing some of the discussions within the GFMD to take that to a whole new level?
I think from the first panel on Tuesday, something that stayed with me is that it was said it's not the time for poesy, it's the time for action. And I think to answer your question, I want to jump 10 years from now, because I think it has been said that this has been a long process, and we'll be talking about the Global Compact for generation to come. And I will answer indirectly your question, but you're saying the role of the diaspora, and I think what I want to see is that continued inclusion of within those spaces of issues that might not have been so visible. So now we're talking about the diaspora, and there will be on Saturday and Sunday the Diaspora Development Dialogue, where members of the diaspora from Europe, but also intra-African diaspora will come together to think about their role in the implementation of the Global Compact, but also linking into sustainable development. I also want other issues to be included in 10 years. I will be talking not only about the diaspora, having diaspora and talking about their specific issues, but also there was discussion about missing migrants, and I think those need to be unpicked. And I believe that in 10 years, that space will be even more inclusive. In 10 years, we also will be reflecting and looking at how civil society will have been continuing to build the capacity of government and other partners when it comes to speaking that right-based language in the implementation of the Global Compact. We will also be continuing supporting each other and building our mutual capacity. So there will be, I believe, that we'll be able to find, there will be a repository of best practice from within the diaspora, from across regions, south-south learning, and that is something that I believe in 10 years when we meet again, these will be the things that we'll be talking about. Also, planning together is something that I've heard a lot, that there is an appetite for pragmatism, realism, and it is time to plan. The process of the adoption of the Global Compact is coming to an end, but this is the beginning of the rest of our work. And planning for what success will be like what we will be doing together, but also what we'll be doing at a different level, at the national level, at the regional, sub-regional level, so that spaces for discussions continue, places for common strategizing also continue to exist, and all that then inform the different processes.
Fantastic. I like how you've looked at 10 years from now. And you're saying 10 years from now when we meet. I hope 10 years from now we don't still continue to be in this kind of process where we are still, we see that there's a lot more still to achieve. And I recognize what you are saying in terms of we've got to unpack some of this. And I like particularly what you're saying in terms of we've got to build capacity of government. And I think this is one of the whole areas in which capacity building has to be seen in that, where stakeholders are involved in a capacity building process and building capacities of governments to understand how diaspora actually play in advancing development within migration is something that I think we might need to focus more on in the implementation of the GCM. Let me come to you, Hannah, in terms of this is the first GFMD as well in which the youth have staked their claim to the process. And which is good, and it's good for us to have you here with us. But even as you listen to some of the deliberations on the GCM and some of the discussions around it, and some of the politics around it and things like that, as youth and getting involved in this process and laying stake to the process, how do you see yourselves moving forward?
Thank you so much, William. I would just like to start to introduce our major group of youth, because some of you might have seen us here as the young delegates. And I'm so happy for the space that you have given us here at the GFMD. So I would just like to first thank you all for that. And I would like to give an applause for the young delegates that I'm here with, because I think from my perspective, getting to work with you guys, you're really amazing. And applaud to yourselves for acknowledging the importance of youth and children into this process. So please give yourself a round of applause. So we're not only representing ourselves or our communities or our experience working with migrants. The United Nations major group for children and youth, we are here to represent 6,500 member organizations for children and youth all over the world. And we are self-organized, but we are open to all of those organizations that would like to engage with us. And we're trying to reach out to even more organizations. And we've been in a major group for 25 years now, but the Migration Working Group has only been active the last 2 years. So
you're very old already as young people.
Exactly, that's it. But just as the civil society has come such a long way in this process, gaining more and more power and impact, and like for the diaspora and the youth within the diaspora, such as the youth and children. And it's really amazing to see, but it's not been that easy. And I think we have to remember that in order to have it possible for us to act, we need also to have the official space going onward. So I would say that it's time for action, but it's also time to think really of the policies, the language, how can we define the structures, and as we've been speaking about multi-stakeholder, multi-year plans, where will the space for youth be in that? And we've developed a strategy within the United Nations major group for children and youth, and we would love to share that with you. It's quite technical at some parts, but it's really to ensure that we have a meaningful, representative participation and engagement of youth. Because I think we really need to also question some of these words that we're using a lot, like being inclusive. Have we been inclusive to youth just because we have a youth representative at a meeting? Because for us, we are here and we're trying to have consultations online and offline in order to bring voices of youth from all around the world into the processes. And that's what we would like to do also later on in the working groups, to make sure that we have meaningful youth participations, youth from different regions that are working in those aspects to have their voice in that say. And we're already implementing a lot of the Global Compact. And I think that we need to remember that ourselves. We're all already doing a lot of these actions so that governments will, because the first day was mentioning that changing attitudes is really difficult. And if we want to do it, if we would know how to do it, we would probably get the Nobel Prize. But it is tricky. There's also research saying that the level of education is getting less and less important. And it's more about what we educate and also coming back to prejudices. And here's also a crucial role for us as children and youth to play. And also, as we said, to reach out with this Global Compact for Migration to all children and youth, and to mention also the comments from my youth colleagues here before, the rapporteurs, that it needs to be accessible when it comes to language, but also in the political process, that they are welcome to come here and discuss with their perspectives.
Thanks, Anna. And then now coming to you, Ignacio, is coming to you just to say that we have seen that there has been a whole process of coming together over these years. And if we look at the action and power, we realize that, yes, there is some power that we have achieved kind of thing. But when you look at it, and I heard the discussion in the green room today, that a lot of this power and action has been built around events like this. You know, and when you reflect upon it, it has in some sense been reactive, you know. So now that we have a global compact kind of thing, is it time for us to be proactive? And what would that mean in terms of then plans, in terms of action that needs to be taken, in terms of having some kind of an agenda that we want to deliver and things like that? I know they'll have been thinking on some of this, but if you could share some thoughts on that.
And you want me to be short?
Very short.
I think the first thing is that there's so much that came out from today. There's so much, and the reports that came out in later in the afternoon are really can give a lot for the directions to take. I think the first thing I would want to say is, does anybody speak Shona? It's a Bantu language. So you're going to check if I got it right. Kufungisisa. That means thinking too much. It also means nervous breakdown, doesn't it? So that's, of course, what we have to avoid, and with a long-term view. It is no longer bringing our shopping lists of what we need and so on. It's increasing our actions. And I think this morning, a number of you, but throughout the day, I think it helped us to remind that we're geared on action, on work plans. What's for breakfast? What's for breakfast? You know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That means that if we don't have the culture in place, all our strategies would not help us. So the culture is something that we really have to take care of. And that is to go also to what you were saying, Hannah, this inclusiveness in the different discussions. Now, where does this bring us in translating into action? I would say very briefly, if I had to say, the next steps that I heard is to keep on sitting down with governments to work on the national plans around the, what's the name of it? Yeah, Global Compact on Migration, for migration. I was just checking to see if you're still following what I was talking about. That, of course, crucial. it's about sitting down with the UN network, to really strategically see how influence can be brought, how we should be entering into that space. We really have to think about influence and not run after red herrings. The third one certainly is for us to go back to sit with our constituencies, to share also the different discussions, to move on our own work plans at national level, at regional level. And I think perhaps coming from the green room, because I think that's also, you know, there's the green room that was talking on how can we support at national level also, or have the interaction with national level and the global level. And I'm not going to run through all what was covered, but certainly there was a call that very much came up clearly this morning, and it's sometimes a continuation of what we do. But I'm not going to try and cover everything, but it's around giving support to strengthen capacities, to support for the country reviews when and if needed. It's around offering space for influencing and advocacy. It's around connecting at the global level, the collective that we work. We can facilitate access. It can be the go-to place as it is. It can connect with larger networks. A lot of this are things that are already done, but I think there's a willingness to really increase the service and the back and forth at the national levels. Analyzing and explaining this morning, a number of you reminded how valuable different documents, the 10 acts and others have been for your own advocacy work. So certainly keep on working on these deliverables with all of you, and with a plan also of being as inclusive and that really as one of the focuses. I can go much further, but I think
thank you.
We're at the end of the day.
You've gone far already, but and that's why, and I like that. I think you've painted the bigger picture of how we can move forward, kind of thing, collectively. And I think we need to continue to deliberate on that. But you've also touched upon how at the national level, and this is where I'm going to the floor to ask, you know, when we're looking at this session, Marrakesh and beyond, it's not ending for us today. Today for us, the Civil Society Days is coming to an end, yes. But some of us will go into the Youth Forum, some of us will go into the Diaspora Forum. We have the PGA, we have the Business and Human Business Forum. There are a number of things happening, and then some of us will even go into the government days and beyond panels, or be there as observers and participants. So what are some of the messages that you think over the last 3 days that you have thought, you have heard, and you feel that these are the messages you would like to bring into those spaces that you go? What is that message that you want to carry into these spaces, saying that this is how the GFMD, this is how the GCM becomes real in our lives? The floor is open. As you put your hands up, I will identify you, and I think we have people with mics going around. So,
while we get that, there's a couple of concrete issue points that I wanted to raise. I thought we were going to come back around. Could I share those?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? So these are ideas about what messages that I wanted to raise from some of the conversations, but also from the conversations of the Global Coalition on Migration, which is a very broad, multi-sectoral, multi-regional coalition. But some of the discussions I've heard in the last days are really, I think, concrete, practical ideas about moving forward. So one discussion being had is that if we think of the compact as a tool and the 23 objectives as a tool, how do we bring back the focus on the human rights obligations of governments and link it to human rights instruments and standards that governments have signed on to. And how do we do that both in terms of content and process of the compact implementation? So looking at guidelines on human rights at borders, I know is important for members of our coalition, looking at access and justice and rights of irregular migrants, looking at regular pathways, the areas that we feel that really need some concerted focus, thinking of ourselves as monitoring and perhaps watchdog bodies in the coming years.
Okay, that's good, and to do that collectively again while connecting with at the national level. So let me see hands go up, and I see one here, and then I see Ben as well.
Bonsoir à tout le monde. Avant tout, remercier les panélistes et l'ensemble de l'audience pour ces jours partagés sur les réflexions du Global Compact. Donc, nous nous acheminons vers le retour et effectivement, il est important que nous pensions à quoi dire à les personnes ou les entités que nous représentons. Moi, avant tout, je me présente, je suis Amadou Bokar Sam, je viens de la Catalogne, je représente une coordination des associations sénégalaises en Catalogne. Donc pour moi aujourd'hui, il est important en termes d'implantation du Global Compact de créer des espaces de réflexion et de concertation avec les autorités locales en tant que diaspora. Tant qu'il n'y a pas ces espaces de réflexion et de concertation avec les autorités locales, on ne peut pas être un acteur actif pour le changement des conditions qui ont fait que les gens soient obligés de quitter leur pays pour aller chercher une vie ailleurs, une vie meilleure ailleurs. Donc ces conditions, c'est dans les pays de départ. Il faudrait que nous, en tant que diaspora, puissions travailler de sorte que de réduire cette méfiance qui existe entre nous et les autorités locales pour construire ensemble, travailler ensemble pour l'implantation du Global Compact. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, les États ont des engagements réels dans ce Global Compact, mais nous, en tant que société civile, nous avons et devons jouer le rôle de contrôle. Tant qu'on n'est pas organisé, il est difficile de jouer ce rôle de monitoring sur l'implantation du Global Compact dans nos pays respectifs, aussi bien à l'origine qu'à destination.
And thank you for that, the need to get organized and to work with local authorities or dialogue with local authorities. Zainab, I'll ask everybody to make it very, 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 very short so that we can get as much as we can. Very short.
Thank you so much for this. Really, I'm really delighted in this presence. Really, it has been very vibrant and rich so far. Just quick points. We're just looking at, because definitely we're leading on the GCM here, and so there is this big discussion between refugees and migrants and the overlap between them. So to what extent the GCM and the UNHCR-led Global Compact on Refugees are coordinating together to ensure that there is complementarity. We saw that there is a little bit of little Arab representation, and we know under Anmar, we've been trying to raise the voice of the Arab region, which is a big country of destination for lots of migrants. And to what extent in the signature are the developing countries, and we saw many of the countries who should receive much more migrants and refugees who closed their doors and are closing their doors. How many countries from the south are going to sign in comparison to the countries of the north? And again, the issue of culture sensitivity, to what extent this GCM is going to look at the culture sensitivity on the ground. Thank you.
Okay, those are questions that we will have to answer as we move forward kind of thing, but that's good. I think what is nice to look at the point that you raised, and I'll ask the panel to think about this, the complementarity issue between the two compacts, even as we think of moving forward. Ben?
Thanks, William. I was just having a chat with Emira, but I don't want to take space from the NGOs in the room, but with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, nice to be with you today, and thanks for being so open and inclusive. A couple of points, linking the previous panel with this one and focusing specifically on recommended next steps for civil society, at least from our office's perspective. One is not to lose sight of the binding treaty instruments that we have. I think without use, they atrophy, and there is some concern, I think, that all of the focus and attention might go to the GCM to the detriment of the 9 binding treaty obligations that states have, or 9 binding treaty instruments that exist, and states have binding obligations there. So continue to use those. Secondarily, I wanted to say something about the role of the UN system and how you all can engage with us. I would say, please don't forget to engage with the whole of system. I've heard it said in a couple of these spaces these last couple of days that IOM now has the mandate for the GCM, and so that's the key partner. There's no mandate to IOM and the GCM to be the one that runs with the GCM. The GCM is a state process, and quite the contrary, the UN system is meant to respond through a UN network, which is a whole of system approach. We're part of the steering committee for that network, as are a number of others. So I would say use all of us, link with all of us. And finally,
thanks, man. Yeah. Thanks. And point taken, I think Monami has raised that we go back to this human rights framework, and this is going to be our struggle, so using that, as well as looking at the whole UN system, and I think that is a very important thing. We have been doing that. We will continue to do that, so thanks for that reminder. I also want to see if there are any governments in the room. I'm moving like this, so keep your hands up. If there are any governments in the room that want to respond to some of the things that I'm hearing, if you will also put your hand up, that will be great. But when you tell me if you're a government representative. Yes, the brother there, sitting next to Pascal, yes.
Thank you. My name is Jean. I think I'm a legitimate representative of Migrant Network in Germany here, and I thank my German civil society delegation for bringing me here. So I have really quick comment. It seems like to me, as a legitimate migrant here, I mean a fresh migrant who came in this GCM. It seems like we are talking about it or discussing about it as a deal between civil society and governments. And I don't see really equal representation of migrant organizations here. And I really urge organizations here to go back in the country and do needs assessment and see how we can improve the lives of those people. Otherwise, the deal is going to be between us organizations, international organizations dealing with migration, and governments, policies, but actions will be rare. So it's one of the things that I really would like to hear and discuss about it, how we can empower migrant networks organization in our respective countries. Thank you.
Thank you for that, but be sure there is no deal being cut here with governments. and it is voices like yours and others that we constantly need to bring to this space, and we continue to improve on that over the years. So thank you for that reminder. I'm moving that way, and I see Kevin.
Thanks, William. I don't want to sound overdramatic here, but the people in this room and our colleagues around the globe are the ones that are going to make or break this compact. The UN migration system will be there to help, but they won't be able to hold the governments accountable. We're the only ones that can do that. And moving forward, we need to have some sort of cohesion as to how we're able to achieve that. Everyone should have their national plans, do their national agendas, try to make governments do their national plans, et cetera. But I'm wondering if we could have a common agenda that we could pursue globally. And I know we're not going to decide that today or even start to talk about it, but to have 2, 3, 4 issues that are transnational models that we can push in our regions and our countries, whether that be alternatives to detention, sustainable reintegration programs, legal avenue programs that we can promote, so that we stay together on a common agenda, not to take away from the national agendas that are there and will be driven by nations, but is there something that we can develop where we all are on the same page issue-wise And then if we have some sort of mechanism to help support that moving forward, then we would have some sort of strategy. But I just thought I'd throw that out for reaction.
Hildegard? Yes. Abdu, you're next. Don't worry, I see you.
I'm here. I'm Hildegard from the German Commission for Justice and Peace. Being now in the last panel of the Global Forum on Migration and Development, I would like to shift the focus again a bit to the development and really plead for that we don't lose track of what development and migration have to do or are connected, how they are connected, and also don't shy away in the next years from internal discussions also on more difficult discussions, counterproductive processes, and also contradictions or incoherences which might come up when we look into the SDG agenda and our own ideas on how to promote migration. Thank you.
Thank you. Abdu? Yeah.
Moi, je pense que c'est très dommage dans cette journée de la société civile. On n'a pas parlé sur l'agenda 2030. Et normalement, c'était prévu qu'on discute sur comment on va réaliser l'agenda de 2030. On discute seulement sur le pacte. C'est très bien, mais je constate que toute la discussion sur le pacte est programmée seulement pour les gens qui sont pro-pacte. Je n'ai pas vu dans le podium ou dans les différentes interventions des gens qui sont pour le pacte, mais qui ont des critiques sur le pacte. Et je constate ça, que ce n'est pas comme ça qu'on va faire unir la société civile. La société civile, ce n'est pas un voix. Parmi nous ici, il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont des réserves. Si vous voulez garder l'unité de la société civile, il faut trouver des compromis entre la société civile pour un voix. Pas seulement la voix de pacte, la voix du gouvernement. Il faut être vigilant. Jamais la société civile a soutenu les États à 100%. Toujours un soutien critique. Montrons-le, le critique. Moi, j'ai écouté ce matin le directeur de IOM. Il est très clair. Moi, je suis le patron, le pacte est comme ça, on a un exécutif comme ça, et si vous, société civile, vous voulez quelque chose, on va vous faire des petites commissions de travail, et après, on peut vous soutenir financièrement. Ce n'est pas ça ce qu'on veut, nous. Nous voulons un droit, nous voulons un partenariat, nous voulons un échange égal. Je ne vois pas dans cette procédure pour le pacte un changement égal. Je dis, si la société civile n'est pas forte, malgré ces contradictions, pour montrer avec une voix critique sur le droit des migrants et des réfugiés, on est perdu. Et on va évaluer le pacte et on va être perdu encore une fois. Merci.
And thank you, Abdul, for that. And I think this is an important reminder as well. As we move forward, as we take this conversation down to national level, regional level, and in implementation, to recognize that how do we bring those who are hurt by migratory processes, by the migration kind of we are seeing today, those who are impacted by it in terms of social cost, violation of rights, vulnerabilities, and things like that, and those who see this as an opportunity. How can we have this conversation? And that is why I bring it back to Kevin, and I want the panel now to respond to that. Kevin made he raised the stakes just now in the room by saying, and I recognize this, that despite all the diversity in the room, from the last representative to what the panel started with, the spectrum of civil society diversity, Kevin still said that it is this community in the room and those aligned with it that can make or break this compact. Can you think then in those terms as to what this means and what you are hearing from the floor? I'll start with Ignacio.
A few points. We really have to avoid turf battles. What we're aiming for is the same thing. It's around the rights for migrants. It's around peaceful societies. Pour ou contre. It's a tool. It's a tool. The preamble says what is strong, and this is a tool, but we should avoid these turf battles. If we are divided, it offers the opportunity for things that do not meet the objectives and the visions that we share. I think also that we're going to, in any case, as I said yesterday, fall short of the needs linked to environmental migration, but many of the humanitarian and other displacements that are going on. We have to, there's not enough money in the system. And there also, an eye has to be kept and to follow where the funding moves. And that's also between states. Perhaps rapidly also we have to change. We have to change the way we are organized, the way our funding models, our ways of working, our structures. The environment is changing extremely fast, and we have to be proactive. Technology, I talked about it yesterday, that's going to change completely the way we're going to be meeting in 5, 10 years' time. We have to be proactive on those bigger picture things. And to come to Kevin's call, we do have to get united on the big issues. Kevin mentioned some around child detention, and others, I forgot which ones you mentioned, Kevin. But at the end of the day, we're talking about civic rights, and that is what has to be defended strongly. And then perhaps the last element on the question of GCR, GCM, it goes beyond that. It's the IDPs as well, and to link those different instruments that exist, and to create the bridges between the different communities that are working on that.
Yeah, and exactly, and just to say that I remember when the conversation started on the compact, one of the first pushes of civil society was to bring the IDPs as well in the discussions. And I remember Ambassador Donoghue at that time saying that this is not the time for it kind of thing, and we might lose what we are getting here. Then we were looking at the compact as complementarity and you know, with mobility. And I think this is part of the ongoing struggle. So yes, thank you for reminding us on that this is bigger than that, and we need to keep that and move it forward with some of the other tools that we already have, like the human rights framework, the UN system that is there that we worked with before. Monami?
Yeah, so I think addressing some of the comments, and Kevin's particularly, I like that challenge. I think that a lot of the practice we've had in struggling through differences, coming to agreements, coming to agreements about different kinds of work, brings us at a place where in the next period we can be proactive about setting our agenda about how we define success. I think Kekali asked us, what do we define in 10 years when we come back here, or in 5 years from now? Maybe that means we really make a concerted effort to organize ourselves in a different way and identify those 1, 2, maybe 3 issues that really resonate. And I think at this point, we know, we have a strong sense of what we've been discussing for a number of years, and look at it not just about the compact, Kevin, but I'd say also regardless of the compact. What governments have been doing, what's in place. I think there's so many question marks about this UN network. Vitorino said it this morning. And is a compact going to be a declaration or a game changer? But if we proactively identify what are those issues, and can we do a cross-regional and cross-national level campaign? Because this is now at the national level. How do we then, that may amplify and support campaigns and struggles at the national level if it's a campaign on a similar issue happening in multiple places. And it can allow a different model of resource exchange, information exchange, capacity building exchange. And the second thing I would say is the how. And the how, I think Ignacio said this as well. we've grown a lot. I think this is a tremendous success. We've grown and we've brought in new layers of leadership, new leaders, new sectors, new regions. We've gone far outside of the place where we meet for the GFMD or Geneva or New York, and let's keep that and let's build that. And at the heart of that is what the brother here said. We need to also concertedly build migrant leadership and organized migrant leadership and support those networks where they exist at the global level.
Thank you, thank you. And I like what you're saying, that we go beyond even the GCM. This is what we are doing here and what we have built here over the last 10 years in this process is what this reflection is, how to keep this together and how to let it grow so it leverages then on the GCM and GFMD and whatever other processes are out there. Thank you. Kelly?
I think, Kevin, I feel like you're being targeted for answers, but I think your point kind of struck a nerve, and it's true that it is the people in this room who break or make the compact, but I think it's beyond the compact. It is people in this room who will make a positive change for all of us everywhere, and I think that's where we go beyond the compact and we look at the SDGs, at the 2030 agenda that you were mentioning. I think the work that we do, we're focusing on migrants, but we are working for people, and I think sometimes bringing things a little bit, taking a maybe higher perspective is useful, and that's where the link with development. So I was in a session earlier that was giving practical example of how the diaspora is contributing to local development in African countries, and they were representative from another African country who were interested by that. And I think seeing those seeds of interest and how that cross-fertilization is happening in spaces like this gives me a lot of hope about what we together can achieve. And it also come back to your point, Sam, about how do we comment être acteur de changement actif, and how do we reach, how do we build the trust or the relationship with the, as diaspora, as migrant who have arrived, wherever it is that you arrive. And it is about how do we change the narrative, because it's also something that I've heard, and the conversation about racism and xenophobia, and it's true that those issues, I guess, underpin a lot of the discussion that we have, and sometimes we might not be really good at naming, and we've been talking about concerns of people, and I think it's about articulating our contribution, our positive contribution, whether it is countries of origin, but also countries of destination, and it is about, I think, as activists, or I guess as an activist, sometimes we're so busy doing that we don't have enough time to talk about what it is that we're doing. And I think getting better at amplifying the work that we do, and also in which direction are we talking. I think there's been a lot of upward that we've been projecting up. But when we talk to each other, I think we learn a lot. We build, we're talking about building capacity a lot, but I think we strengthen each other. And it is about the movement, because I don't think that disjointed voices will get us anywhere, but it's about how can we build on the momentum, how when we live here, we still feel that, that solidarity and that sense of togetherness, and how do we build on that. And sometimes there might be, you know, migration fatigue, and sometimes we don't even remember the name of that thing that will be talked about in the coming days. But I think it's, yes, I think I'm rambling or ranting, but I think we need to talk to each other more. We need to celebrate our achievement more. I think it's something that was mentioned at the very beginning of this panel, that we have achieved a lot, and not that far in the past, we didn't have a seat at the table. So I think let's take stock of that. Let's kind of recoup our energies, and then let's move forward together.
And that is something we've got to do, talk more to each other in order to build this power kind of thing, right? Hannah?
Thank you. Thank you for coming back once again to ownership of migrants, of these questions. And as 1/3 of migrants today globally are youth, also the children and migrant youth within that. Thank you for coming back to the comment about how important it is to also have multi-stakeholder processes on the local level. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, right? That's where human rights start, in the small places, in the local level. But we need it on all levels. And I think, as we heard here, we have a crucial role in this. We were told yesterday to wake up as civil society and get out of our dreams. Some of us have been awake 24/7 working with these issues. And I think we need to show the power we have on the ground, the knowledge we have, the experience we have, and also show that we are a needed force, a resource that can be used wisely in order to implement this compact, and also to go beyond, because of course I'm a medical doctor. I'm always working on the needs assessments. We have to look in each and every community for their specific needs. They might have priorities that are not according to the Global Compact for Migration, then we cannot neglect that. And this is something that we are doing with the youth, the UNMGCY. So we're having consultations all around the world with youth and also getting local stakeholders and governments to that table in order to have this exchange and for them to concretely have action plans that they can follow up. And this is also the purpose of the Youth Forum that we've been arranging now for this weekend. So we're bringing together 200 youth from all around the world, migrants and young people working in migrant issues, to discuss with stakeholders, with actors from the governments, and to come up with concrete action plans that they will take back home to their communities and that we can help them to follow up and also to empower them in order to implement these action plans.
Thank you for that, and I like how you talk about the consultations you do, and we might want to have a discussion on how we can learn from each other in those processes. From the center of the room, and I'm moving right, I see sister here, and I see a hand there, and Anise and Gemma. Yes, sister? First table.
I just would like to mention, I think, this is my first GFMD, and I would like to share what I have not heard. One is the values of hospitality in our culture. It's embracing the other, welcoming the other. Number two, bring nature or natural environment in the discussion of migration. How can nature be the point of reference in terms of human mobility? Let us learn from nature's hospitality to host life. A lot of our cultural evolution and development is shaped by our natural environment. In the process of human mobility, the driver is to search for hospitable environment to support life and its fullness. When we destroy the ecological balance that support the life of our brothers and sisters, we drive them to movement to search for life and to serve their life. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got only 7 minutes. So I see the hand here, yes. I see Gemma, I see Anise, and I will finish with Pefi.
I just like to share some reflection. Oh, is it my turn? Okay. Before I came to this conference, I got a little worried because of what was happening. Some countries were not adopting, they are pulling out. But past 2 days and meeting everybody, I feel really good. I feel very positive. I feel very hopeful because no matter what, whether they sign the compact or not, everybody will be doing what you are doing forever. And
Thank
you are
you,
already
brother.
doing the work. And then if not us, our young generation, they are stepping up, they will be doing. So I'm very hopeful. So I think also I just like to want to go back to what we shared today about some regional breakout discussion. I think great ideas came out. I feel like we have a clear map what we like to go, the promised land. But my question is, we need a vehicle that will be get on the bus, will share the information, will coordinate, and they will be migrating to that destination. Then my question is, could, also thanks to GMFT, could GMFT steering committee come together and then give us some kind of like plan. So this is at least regional or national, this is some kind of point person who can really revisit what we discussed, the great idea, and then this is the next clear action.
Stay plugged in, brother. Stay plugged in. Gemma?
Okay, I'm going to try to be brief. I want to pick up specifically on one of the challenges that Monami raised by asking, how do we integrate human rights into the actions and into plans, action plans that we devise? And I think that goes to the heart of the matter for civil society organizations and trade union organizations. How do we integrate human rights? Because this is the way of ensuring that our work is people-centered, and at the end of the day, we are looking at how migrants are treated and also how we would improve the well-being of migrants, how we address the issues of their vulnerability. And this, insofar as it applies also to the world of work, because they are seeking livelihoods and they are working in order to gain income, and they need decent work, they need good conditions of work, they need health and safety at work, so that the extension of human rights to the world of work is one of the areas that we are looking at. And for me, as far as that is concerned, incorporating labor rights and human rights into the action plans, I just find that there is an area of concern when I listen to the way the UN Migration Network and the working groups are being formed, and the emphasis on pragmatism and results-oriented, and it's sort of quick successes and quick fixes. And what we want to deal with in terms of incorporating human rights and labor rights, it's a bit more complex than the quick fixes. The quick fixes are necessary, of course. We were hearing examples of being very issue-specific. And that is good, but we need to move beyond being issue-specific to dealing with long-term challenges where we will systematically integrate human rights and worker rights. And I think we have, when we talk about mapping best practice, we do have best practice in how we do this, and we need to bring it to the table, and we need to move beyond the discourse of pragmatism and quick fixes and being nimble, and you know, there's a whole range of expressions that are used there that are a bit concerning, because the issues are more complex than that.
Thank you, Gemma. And your point is correct. We cannot forget we celebrate this year 70 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Next year we celebrate 100 years of the ILO, which has carried labor standards. I think this has to be at the core of our work, this celebration of these rights. And to go back in whatever action we are doing to this. Anis?
Yes. Thank you. What the next step? I think important to building the ownership to GCM for more related multi-stakeholders, especially women, especially migrant workers and their community, also the trade union. The second one, as all of us understand that local government in the next step is the key actors. So it's how to fill in the gap regarding with the capacity building of the local government. And the last, regarding with the responsive gender responsive should be the core perspective in the implementation of the GCM. Thank you.
Thank you, Anis. And Pefi, you get the last word from the floor. We have to finish, brother.
Aloha. I'm sorry, I'm a bit deaf today. Aloha.
Okay, the sneeze.
Thank you. Please consider the following recommendations and include as is appropriate. Number one, that we should establish a history of outcome statements every time we meet. Civil society must have an outcome statement for all of our GFMD meetings. Number two, that we translate the Global Compact of Migration. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been translated into 500 different languages. We're offering to do the Māori and the Niue version, and also the Fijian, because we have those skills. There's a start. Number 3, may we please revisit our inclusion and inclusive policy. Those parties, those stakeholders that haven't quite been mentioned, nor emphasized, nor prioritized, include the LGBTQ, the Indigenous and Indigenese and the peasants, the faith-based organizations, people with disabilities, and perhaps others. Number 4, may we please show commitment to the Migrant Women's Manifesto. The challenge is sign it. Very simple. Sign it. Before you sleep this evening, we challenge you to sign it. It is online. It is too easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And number 5,
Thank you.
lastly, on behalf of Pacific, we thank you for your friendship, your fellowship, your aloha, and also, may I, on behalf of the room, we haven't got there yet, may I, on behalf of the room, please ask you to put your hands together for our hosts and organizers. Big hand.
Okay, I will come back now to the panel and ask you each to give us just one statement, just one sentence for us to take with us. Okay, Kelly, I start with you.
That's a tough ask.
You lost, you finished.
No, but no. I think there's a lot of, we talk about power and we talk about knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge in this room. We have a lot of power. Let's use it.
Perfect. Hannah?
I really need to work on my Twitter potential, I feel. There are a few words I would like to share with you. It's trust, values, empowerment, ownership, accessibility, partnerships, multi-year, multi-stakeholder, action plans, partly concrete, partly visionary. Because youth won't wait. We're already implementing big parts of the Global Compact on migration, and it's time for governments to wake up.
Thank you. And all those words, you gave us the GCM glossary. Monami?
I'm going to do a false sentence of words as well. Concrete, collective, multinational, multi-sectoral, human rights of migrants focused campaign. Let's act together and let's act big.
Thank you. And Ignacio?
Well, the best way to escape problems is to solve them one by one. Be focused. It's a long run. Choose your battles. Olivier, it's just like ultra trail running, isn't it?
So thank you to the panel. Thank you to the house. I think we've got some good ideas moving forward, and let's move. Thank you, and we move into the next session. Closing ceremony.
So we're starting in a minute. Can you please take your seats? Sorry? They will make sure, of course, of course. I don't know what time. Okay. Yes. Okay. We are starting with the closing ceremony. Can you please take your seats? We're closing. Shh. Perfect. Okay. So we are at this moment when we are closing those 2 wonderful 3 days. It is hard to believe that 3 days has gone by so fast, so quickly, so energetically. The energy in the room is so great and so amazing, and I think we've been at a great place those 2 days. To close those 3 days of civil society, common space, and then civil society again, we are joined by very special guests. Our first guest is Ambassador Arturo Carbera Hidalgo, who's the next GFMD chair from Ecuador, who's hosting us next year in 2019 in November, I believe. Our second guest is Ms. Islehan, head of the division from the General Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. We're also joined by Stéphane Jacquemet, who's the policy director for the International Catholic Migration Commission, our organizers. I'm also joined by my co-chair, Mamadou Goita and Hamza Ibrahim. Ambassador Hidalgo, maybe we can start with you. Next year will be your guests in Ecuador. So what is your vision? Maybe you can share with us a little bit.
Dear friends, good afternoon to you all. I have to and I want to start by thanking Stefan and all the organizers and participants of the Civil Society Days for the privilege to end this event by sharing with you, as incoming chairmanship of the GFMD, some of the priorities that we have identified for 2019. As we said on September 3rd, our chairmanship will not just inform about the identification of priorities and items to be discussed, but we will have a wide process of internal and external consultations in order to also consider priorities not just of our country and region, but also of the whole international community, including all GFMD stakeholders, and in this case, giving a stronger voice and influence, I repeat, an influence to the civil society. As part of the group of experts that reviewed the last 10 years of the GFMD, I'm glad to be able to say that I have pushed it as a need for a better understanding of migration, this stronger influence of civil society. In different items, like, for example, shared responsibility. This is especially important at this crucial moment in global migration, when the GFMD will have the opportunity to assume new responsibilities, especially regarding the GCM, and will have to respond to many existing and new expectations, some of them that I just heard in the last minutes. We have already started an internal process, a process of consultations that included the Latin American, not just Ecuadorian civil society, which I'm glad to say it is very active and organized. We have prepared also, and we have held it already, a workshop in Quito about 2 weeks ago on specific issues related to the 2019 chairmanship, and we have drafted elements for a concept papers, for some concept papers that are now being reviewed at different levels. The Ecuador 2019 chairmanship is aiming to break paradigms in the field of migration, to reinforce GFMD, to make it more inclusive and result-oriented, and to provide it with the necessary tools to respond to what has been asked in the operative paragraphs 47, 51, and 43 of the GCM, preserving, however, its strengthening and its own characteristics, this non-binding characteristic, its independence, its flexibility. That's what gives uniqueness and richness to this now more than ever valuable process. I will have, and I hope so, that I will have the chance to continue talking to you in different ways and in different fora in the next months, including through an online interactive initiative that will be put to work. The message, anyways, is at this time that we are here mainly to listen and take advantage of your so valuable expertise. Just a couple of elements of our proposals. A premiere for the civil society. We have identified the important need to involve more and in a different way all stakeholders. And I'm not just talking about, of course, civil society, but academia. We're talking and working already on including the trade unions, labor unions, and others that do not necessarily participate directly with the same interests as other groups. We have thought that the GFMD has to be taken to regional levels, and this is something very important we discussed this morning in the governmental meeting. The Global Compact, the GFMD, is not a one-size-fits-all. We were talking about, for example, South-South migration in the morning, and we said there are so many ways and kinds of South-South migration that we cannot just try to provide a general discussion to cover it all. So taking to the regional level, the GFMD will allow each region, each community to develop their goals from the point where they are now. I can talk about the region of Latin America, where I can proudly say way ahead in legislation, policies, and so on, that if we think of a standard line for everybody, in our case, it would mean regression of rights. So we need to think about all these things in a different way, and especially we have to think about these things together. We need also to include, again, the development actors in the GFMD. We talk about migration and development. That was probably the political solution at some point in order to allow us to talk about migration. But development is absolutely important, and it's been left behind. So we're planning to work on that and include these actors. We have worked on some thematic topics. This is just proposals that we are taking to different levels of consultation. But I want to mention this evening to you. We think, for example, that it is important to understand, to really understand and develop the concept of shared responsibility based on the human rights of people in mobility. We have at this very moment a very serious case in Latin America, in Ecuador, where the concept of shared responsibility, I don't want to use the word burden because that has a negative context, but the concept of shared responsibility, I was saying, was used in so many different ways, and I'm sure most of them were not the right approach that we were expecting for. Fortunately, the meetings of Quito, the 2 meetings of Quito, the next one in January, will help to evolve these kind of concepts. We also want to, as I said before, give voice to every actor involved in order to have a comprehensive and effective discussion of migration and to generate a specific strategic and effective alliances. Developing the PFP, the Platform for Partnerships, is one of the elements that will be taken a lot into consideration, and for that we will also base our work on the review of the 10-year review document of the GFMD. We want to promote the necessary changes, correct necessary changes in the narrative of human mobility. This is a transversal need. We want to highlight the importance of the coordination and development of efforts aimed at the recollection and processing of data and information on migration for better decision making. Most of the decisions that are made nowadays are based on political reasons or others that I don't want to mention here. And finally, not because it's the least important, but because we want to give this message that the GFMD will continue having its own uniqueness. Finally, at the end, we want to give priority to the contribution of the GFMD to the implementation of the 2 global compacts. I mean, GFMD as a bridge between the so-called migration and refugee pacts. Of the records, don't quote me, please, I do not think that the pacts are complementary. I think they are leaving too many people behind. Just what the 2030 agenda asked us not to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Hidalgo, for sharing your vision to what looks a very promising GFMD next year. And I think part of the ability of the GFMD to really deliver its ability to be constantly evolving to match with the challenges of the time. With that, I turn to you, Ms. Isle, to deliver the last words on behalf of Germany.
Yes. Okay. Do you hear me? Yes. Yes. Dear Mr. Hamati, dear co-chairs, distinguished participants of the GFMD Civil Society Days in Marrakesh, distinguished guests. I think as a government representative is not an easy task. I've been in the room here for some time, also have been here yesterday, but you may wonder, I like to be here. I already have been there in Berlin and Dhaka, and I like to be here, and I will elaborate a little bit more why. So, people have always moved long distances in order to escape from war, oppression, or simply poverty. Okay. Simply poverty, to find a better life elsewhere. 260 million people worldwide are living outside their countries where they were born, and the number is growing rapidly. As they are migrating, they share their knowledge with others, engage in exchange, lend impetus to new development, but you all know there are bright sides and there are dark sides. Only one thing is certain: a world without migration has become unthinkable. We all, the general public, civil society organization, and government, have to look for feasible answers together. So I would like to thank you, the chair, the organizers, for inviting me. It is a great honor for me to be able to speak at the closing of the GFMD Civil Society Days. I would especially like to thank Stefan from ICMC for their excellent cooperation we have enjoyed with ICMC for a long time, and I would like to thank his predecessor for also being there in the heating days in the negotiations. Meeting the challenges of migration and giving direction to migration are tasks for all of the society. Thus, one of the GFMD assets and unique selling proposition is the participation of civil society in the forum and the input that it provides. At the Civil Society Days in Berlin in 2017, we were looking forward to negotiation on the Global Compact. No one, and now, 1.5 years later, we are on the verge of the milestone in global migration governance. The Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration is about to be adopted on Monday. Once it is adopted, and I want to say the German government firmly supports this GCM, we will need to move forward to implementation. That will by no means an easy process, as the negotiations on the GCM have demonstrated. Disagreements will come up and different perceptions on how to be best consider the needs and the interests of all stakeholders involved. I am convinced that those discussions are not a problem. Those can nourish the process and help bring about better solutions. A prominent voice rushes to my mind. Mahatma Gandhi famously said, "Honest disagreement is often a good sign of a process." What do I mean by that? It means that by developing a 360-degree vision of international migration, and that is what we are facing, therefore we need all to broaden our horizon. We must look at entry, but also at return. We have to look at both integration and reintegration. We need to improve conditions for remittances and for combat human trafficking. We must wholeheartedly support human rights, and we have to uphold the rule of law. I'm grateful that the GFMD Civil Society Days have started to discuss topics that were considered difficult in the past, such as return and reintegration. Those who were present at the yesterday's session on transit, entry, reception, and return could witness that the spectrum of opinions on that topic is broad, and it is broader as it could possibly be seen. Under the conditions that we actually listen to each other, I am convinced we will be able to learn. For me, the civil society days are like oxygen that helps governments and international organizations think better and more creatively about finding solutions for international migration. And that is what we need, solutions. Solutions with a short-term, with a mid-term, and a long-term perspective. We have heard it more than once at the Civil Society Days. The value of the compact will not be measured by the words it contains, but by the change it achieves. Germany could not agree more. There are always new causes for non-voluntary migration, maybe political instability, maybe a lack of opportunities, maybe the consequences of climate change, only to name a few of them. And there are always new ways of discriminations against migrants. People who are victims of human trafficking, people who are forced to hand over their passports as domestic servants, migrants who are imprisoned with no legal protection. We do need solutions, and we need you. And now comes the exciting part. How do we do about it? The GCM, as it stands, will not be legally binding. So nobody will be able to force the hand of governments that object to implement it. What you will need to do is to develop tailor-made, realistic, win-win suggestions and solutions that will create mutually opportunities. Put your best people on the job of suggesting these solutions. As I said, we need you. Without concrete examples, without hands-on experience of the civil society, most governments would struggle to implement policies that work for migrants and that work for the people. You are the oxygen of a thoughtful process, and you are the bridge of civil society's great ideas into the realm of the governments. At the same time, you also have heard responsibility to help governments to communicate their migration policies. How do we address many people's concern towards some effects of migration that they perceive as negative? How do we build a sustainable social consensus on migration? How do we communicate that many of migration's benefits are long-term, whilst its challenges are often arising in the beginning? I know that in Germany, civil society organizations, and I see some of them here in the room, will watch carefully how we will implement the GCM commitments. My ministry, for Economic Cooperation and Development, will set up its efforts promoting programs for legal and safe migration, expanding advisory programs on migration policies, help use migrants' remittances for development purposes, expand our program, returning to new opportunities. Every country has different needs and different challenges. Find out how you can discuss with your government, how you can find those mutually anticipating opportunities, that they cannot resist to listen to your advice. It is much needed. Yes, there is right and wrong. There is good and bad, but there is also the more subtle distinction, often shaped by people perspective. A famous German philosopher, Max Weber, called it the difference between the ethics of responsibility and the ethics of conviction. We need them both if we really want to make a difference. I want to thank you generously for our host, Morocco, our co-chair of the GFMD, and I like it very much that the co-chairs are a country of Africa and a country of Europe. They have shown that they are serious about change and that they have involved civil society into create the summit. I want to thank you for your dedication, your commitment, and your creative spirit. On behalf of the federal government, I cannot promise you that all you agreed with everything we do on migration issues. But what I can promise you is our openness to your good ideas and our support for the spirit of the GCM. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Han, for your closing remarks and also your promises. I turn now to you, Stefan, to give your closing words.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, just 4 very brief points, and I will come back later for some thank you, but now I just focus on substance. My impression, and it's something I feel very, very strongly, is that the Global Compact is not only a game changer on migration, but is a game changer on civil society. I have the sense that through the negotiation of the compact, through all the preparation work from the New York Declaration up to Marrakesh, I think we have changed a lot. And I think change is at the same time painful and wonderful. Today, I have not so much the impression of the pain, but more of being, energized. And really, I have the impression that these 3 days have been we have been trying to build something together. We will have many, many challenges ahead of us, because a changing civil society also means a changing way of working together. And I think the real challenge, and I think there have been voices expressing that, is that how we can be united but respecting diversity, and respecting diversity of voices. And for me, this is the profound challenge we have ahead of us. The second one is that I think we have been saying that, but also yesterday during the common space, some of the government expressed the same. We said we need now to go towards implementation. It's no longer negotiation. I'm a bit afraid that because of so many countries pulling out of the compact, we have remained a little bit in the negotiating mode, in the advocacy mode. And I think we still need to do a little bit of homework to be even more towards implementation. And I'm sure, Ignacio, you will appreciate the comparison, but if I take a comparison of sport, you have competition, but when you are not competing, which is very few moments, you have to train. So the negotiation of the compact was more like winning a competition. Now we need to go back to training, to the hard work, where every day you wake up and you know that you will have 3 or 4 hours of sweating, etc., etc. This is implementing the compact. It's really the hard work with governments to work on very specific issues and to make sure that we can move on. The third challenge, and I have only the 4, so the third one, I think, is we need to refound the balance between advocacy and being operational. I believe that during implementation, our strength will be less advocacy, but more what we do on the ground with migrants. Because if we can show to governments that we are partners because we are with migrants, I think our credibility will go up. And in my view, what will be very important for advocacy agency, because advocacy will remain important, is that we basically are the voice for what grassroots organizations are doing at the national and the local level. And finally, I think this is a call to everyone, but I'm a bit appalled that we are basically adopting a compact, but we do not have resources. I mean, whether we talk about the UN Migration Network, implementation at the national level, we have a very ambitious text and we have very little money. And I think some of the actions can be done without money, but a lot needs money. So I think as a civil society, we need to harass states, UN agencies, and everyone, and our own agencies, to make sure that we have money to translate our dreams into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane, for those reflections and words. Mamadou, can you share with us your closing words?
Yeah. Nous sommes donc à la fin de la première partie, parce que ce n'est pas fini. Demain, nous allons avoir le plaisir d'être avec les États encore pour partager la journée. En ce moment, nous avons une pensée très pieuse à tous ces jeunes, filles et garçons, ces femmes et ces hommes. Certains sont actuellement dans plein désert, en train de souffrir. D'autres sont dans la mer. Certains sont au-dessus, d'autres sont au-dessous. Et donc, ça fait une pensée très pieuse à toutes ces personnes qui souffrent dans leur chair pour essayer d'aller chercher soit des refuges parce qu'ils sont poursuivis par un malheur, soit à la recherche d'un bien-être. Mais aussi à d'autres qui sont à destination, qui sont déniés de tous leurs droits. Donc, en ce moment précis, nous sommes très peinés de savoir qu'encore dans ce monde, avec suffisamment de moyens, qu'il y a ce genre de situation qui se passe. Mais en même temps, nous sommes encouragés par le fait que toutes ces voix qui sont ici, venues de l'ensemble des continents, qui, avec des moyens assez limités, continuent à se battre pour dire on peut faire autrement. Et pendant ces 2 jours, nous avons essayé de dire qu'on peut faire autrement, avec ces ressources, avec les engagements, avec la volonté et avec les idées que nous avons. Nous espérons vraiment qu'on sera entendu et que tous ceux qui ont participé à la préparation de cet événement, au nom de l'ensemble de l'équipe des coprésidents, nous les remercions très fortement. Mais nous avons une pensée extrêmement positive à toute l'équipe de la CMC pour l'effort qui a été consenti pour que nous puissions tous être ici ensemble et qu'on puisse avoir un programme bien établi, des salles assez prêtes et toute la logistique. Tous nos amis du Maroc et tous ceux qui, de près ou de loin, ont contribué à cet événement. J'ai peur de dire des noms parce qu'il y a beaucoup de gens derrière la scène, au risque de perturber ma pensée, ce que je n'ai pas voulu faire. Alors, nous avons échangé autour de certains points importants, tout en espérant que l'année prochaine, quand on va se retrouver en Équateur, qu'on puisse être en train d'évaluer ce qui a été fait pour changer. Qu'on puisse être en train d'évaluer de façon concrète, pas de façon théorique ce qui doit être, mais ce qui a été. C'est sûr que nous avons des contradictions encore à régler, nous avons des problèmes avec ces processus, mais que nous allons continuer à nous battre pour que la solution soit trouvée aux faiblesses, mais que les points forts que nous avons puissent être consolidés et avoir des réponses. Donc nous sommes très fiers d'avoir été dans cette équipe de présidence de cette phase du GFMD, en espérant que l'Équateur nous donnera encore un plateau meilleur que ce que nous avons connu ici et que l'ensemble des participants feront le maximum pour que nous puissions exécuter des actions au retour et ne plus parler de stratégie simplement, mais de ce que nous avons pu faire pour changer la vie de ceux qui sont arrivés à destination maltraités, violés, violentés, notamment les femmes et les jeunes, pour ceux qui meurent en cours de route, pour ceux qui sont aujourd'hui dans des difficultés, pour que leurs droits soient respectés. Donc on doit travailler et ça ne fait que commencer. Moi j'ai beaucoup d'espoir avec cette phase du GFMD, qu'avec les outils que nous avons aujourd'hui et avec les défis auxquels nous faisons face, qu'on aura une réussite au bout du rouleau. Mais cela ne peut se faire que s'il y a cette cohérence d'ensemble dans la diversité, comme certains l'ont dit. Donc merci à toutes et à tous pour l'appui constant qu'on a eu ici en tant qu'équipe de la présidence, coprésidence, l'appui technique, mais aussi psychologique et social que nous avons eu. Et grâce à vous tous, on est arrivé à cette phase et j'espère bien que vous allez continuer à soutenir tous celles qui vont porter nos messages au niveau des prochaines éditions du GFMD. Merci bien pour votre hospitalité, chers amis du Maroc. Merci pour le travail fait, chers amis du ICMC. Merci à l'équipe de la coalition globale sur la migration, donc d'ICM, dont nous faisons tous partie. Merci à tous les réseaux qui ont contribué avec des petits mots de sympathie à nous soutenir dans ce travail. Et je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention, en espérant qu'on va se retrouver très bientôt autour des résultats concrets de ce que nous avons fait ici au Maroc. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Mamadou. I turn to you, Hamza, Civil Society Co-Chair for 2018. Can you share your final thoughts and words?
Thank you. It has been really great pleasure to be part of this wonderful chairing team. And I just want to begin to thank the coordinating team for their great work. And there is a lot of work behind these 3 days that we have just assembled here to discuss very important issues. And I would like to thank all of you for the positive energy that you brought to this year's GFMD. I want to conclude by saying that I agree with Mrs. Elsa that civil society is the oxygen of all developments that is happening in our societies. And to be like more personal, if I just try to bring my experience, I myself moved to Sweden as an accompanied minor in the summer of 2010. And I think without the platform and the energy and the hope that me and my colleagues back at home have been given by the Swedish civil society groups, I could have not been sitting here and being part of the chairing team of this year's GFMD. So there's a lot of things that you guys are doing, and GCM, as Ignacio said, is just a tool to build on the kind of things that we are doing in our own communities. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hamza. I will speak in Arabic, so headsets. بحب يمكن بالختام أحكي باللغة العربية لأنه نحن اليوم بالمغرب. لاختتام يعني هدول الأيام الرائعين كانوا يمكن لازم نتذكر إنه من سنتين تقريبا بلش مشوار طويل بالنسبة لكثير منا، مشوار العمل على إقرار الاتفاقية الدولية للهجرة. هيدا المشوار واكبته جمعيات كبيرة من المجتمع المدني بأعداد هائلة وبتطلعات كبيرة، وكان يعني كان تطلعاتنا لهالاتفاق كتير كبيرة. بس اليوم نحن بوقت تاريخي، بلحظة تاريخية، بنلاقي حالنا اليوم بمراكش بلحظة كتير مهمة لإلنا، مش بس لأنه الاتفاقية رح تقر. بفتكر من الدروس يلي تعلمناها كمجتمع مدني عم يشتغل مع بعضه، عم بيتحاور مع بعضه، هو إنه هالمساحة المشتركة يلي خلقت نتيجة هيدي الاتفاقية هي مساحة كتير ضرورية، هي مساحة من خلالها بنبني الثقة، هي مساحة من خلالها عم نتعلم من بعض وعم نتقدم لقدام. بفتكر هيدا الأسبوع حيكون أسبوع قوي جدا وأسبوع هام جدا بالمناصرة لحقوق المهاجرين. بس هيدا الأسبوع أبدا منه نهاية الطريق، هيدا الأسبوع يمكن بداية الطريق بالنسبة لأشخاص كتير منا. الموضوع هو مش بس موضوع اتفاقية ولا موضوع يعني أدوات موجودة لنا، الموضوع أكيد أكبر بكتير. الموضوع هو الصراع والنزاع يلي منخوضه كل يوم ببيوتنا وبأماكننا، يلي منخوضه مع المهاجرين وللمهاجرين. بفتكر بختام هيدا اللقاء كان لقاء كتير عظيم، كان لقاء كتير فيه أفكار جديدة، كان لقاء كتير فيه تطلعات وأمال. بفتكر خلينا ناخد هيدي الثقة يلي بنيناها وناخد كل هيدي الأفكار للأمام، ناخدها بالأسبوع اللي قدامنا، بس كمان ناخدها بالمراحل الجاية، لأنه أكيد رح نعوز تضامن، أكيد رح نعوز هيدي الثقة يلي انبنت، لأنه أكيد في تحديات رح تكون كتير قوية بتواجهنا. وبالختام بحب أشكركم كلكم، بحب أشكر الفريق المنظم من ICMC، بحب خص بالشكر أكيد إيمر يلي اشتغلت ليل نهار معنا بكل هالأيام ليكون هاللقاء بهالجمال وبهالقوة وبهالفعالية. بشكركم كتير ومنكفي المشوار نحن أكيد، وهالجمعة خلينا نكون متضامنين مثل ما بلشناها. شكرا. وبالنهاية بحب أرجع أسلم الميكرو لستيفان يلي حيقوم بكم announcement.
Just 5 minutes, but I think we need at the end of 3 days very intense. I think we need also to celebrate a little bit. I mean, we are in the mood to say no, it's half of the way, etc. But I think we have already achieved quite a lot, and sometimes it's important to recognize it. So, I mean, I would like to express a number of thank you on your behalf. First, Ilse, thank you to Germany, thank you to you personally, to your ministry, to GIZ. Germany has been a very, very generous donor, but I think there is also this sense of partnership. And for me, this is really, really important. So thank you for that. Arturo, muchas gracias por su visión y muchas gracias por a Ecuador, por ser un país muy abierto, para ser un país que tiene una política de migración muy humana, en un contexto muy complicado, muy complejo. Y para mí eso es el más importante, porque con la situación de Venezuela es una situación de crisis, pero en una situación de crisis hay una respuesta humana. Eso para mí es muy importante, y también para desarrollar este concepto de movilidad humana. Gracias a Ecuador, pero también un gracias personal. Y para mí es muy simbólico que tenemos la presidencia de Ecuador para el GFMD del 2019. Muchas gracias. Really, a big thank you to Rula,
Hamza, Mamadou. I mean, if I can use one word to define you, I must say I have been inspired by you. Inspiration. And for me, you have been combining three things. First is true leadership, but also respectful attitude for others. And for me, this is the key of being chair and co-chairs. And I think what has been absolutely extraordinary is that you have been functioning extremely well as a team, and it's not easy. And then because you have been able to build on your own personal qualities. So it has been a multiplier rather than in other teams usually is kind of divisive sometimes. But in your case, it has been a multiplier. So thank you for being a wonderful chair. I would like to thank the steering committee, the action committee, and the core group. I mean, we have been consulting them during months, and they have been really providing a fantastic support to the team and to the chair and the coaches. So thank you so much. I would like to thank, sorry, I will not name all of them, but I would like to thank the moderators, the panelists, and the rapporteur, because I mean, if we have had substance during these 3 days, it's thanks to them. So thank you. Now I would like to call Imer and ask her to come here on the podium. Imer, what you have done is absolutely incredible. I mean, just imagine, because Imer has been consulting so many people to ensure that we had really an agenda reflecting the diversity of civil society. But you know, the more you consult, the more work you have. Yes or no? So I think the amount of work done by Imer is just incredible. So I will not name everything. You had a lot on your shoulders. I hope that tonight you can relax a little bit. There is still tomorrow, but I mean, you did the worst part, which was, and really, I think the outcome is absolutely extraordinary, and it's really thanks to you.
Okay, thank you, but I don't want to take all of those applause. I really feel completely obliged to call all of the team up on the stage now to share the embarrassment. But this wasn't me. It wasn't just me. I was part of the most amazing team. All of you, come on up. We had Clara. Clara dealt with, well, you'll never know how much Clara dealt with, but she was the logistics officer. She made everything happen here practically. All of you are sitting here. The amazing tech, everything was what Clara put together. So please give her your appreciation. All of the live streaming, all of the videos, all of the tweets, everything. This was this girl here, Julia. She's been running around all the time. Thank you, Julia. Yeah, no, Amelie did really nothing. Yeah, you haven't seen her running around doing everything from the side events, the exhibition space, organizing the lunch, doing every little bit that needed doing. She was just fantastic at every stage here and also beforehand with everything. So Amelie, again, sorry for taking so much time, but it needs to be said. Reka, you all know Reka. And you've all got emails from Reka. Again, she has got you all here. She's been doing the flights, the per diems for funded delegates. Her heart is so big. You wouldn't believe that she said, oh, but can we do this? Can we go the extra mile? She's always gone the extra mile, and she's done it all for you. So really, please give a big round of applause. I wish I could say this in French, but I want to get it right, so I'm going to say it in English. Hopefully, it will be translated later. Azadine joined our group just a few weeks ago, and honestly, we don't know what we would have done without him. We don't remember life without him. He's just, you've been amazing, Azadine. You've done everything and more. You've, again, always gone the extra mile, and for something that you didn't have to, but you really believed in it, and you believed in us. So thank you so much from the bottom of all of our hearts.
You continue?
Well, I have one more to go. And a shout out to Romy, who can't be with us today, but is hopefully live streaming in. I hope so. Hi, Romy. Thank you so much for everything. I'm not done. We have all of the volunteers. If you could all stand up, if that's all right. They've been doing everything all around the place. Thanks so much. So Sophie is hiding behind the flag right now. But behind the king. But Sophie, if you can also come up here, and you all know Sophie as well. You know that she's been central to our work on the Global Compact. And yeah, I couldn't have done anything without her. And finally, to Stefan. Thank you so much, Stefan, for everything, for guiding us, for leading us. None of this could have happened without you. The leadership you've shown and the passion you've shown for something you're new to, that didn't stop you for a moment. You have gone headfirst into this. You have been with us every step of the way, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm and passion. Okay, I give the mic back now. Thank you all so much. Thanks to our audience too. And Mantolin, of course, thank you so much. Come on up, Mantolin.
Okay, and I will thank you all. Pardon? Yeah, no, The interpreters have a very complicated job, and they did it very beautifully. So, thanks a lot. and the staff of the hotel, because I think they have also done a great job. And finally, but I think it's really, really, really important, I believe profoundly, but being even self-critical, that we had a very good meeting. Something really substantive. We have been able to take stock of the past, but also to move forward. And I think I think we generated an incredible amount of energy and positive vibe, and this is thanks to you. So please, a big round of applause for each one of you. Thank you.
Y es el principio nada más.